Why would a bride carry a gun beneath her wedding dress? The afternoon sun streamed through the stained glass windows of Our Lady of Grace Church, casting molten gold and fractured color across white satin and pearl beads. To the guests packed into the pews, it was the most beautiful sight Cedar Falls had ever witnessed. At the altar stood Katerina Thorne, Kate to those who loved her, blonde hair gathered into an elegant twist, a vintage tiara resting on her head, her hands trembling ever so slightly as she held Michael Brennan's calloused fingers. She looked nervous, a bride overwhelmed by the gravity of vows, but her pale blue eyes kept flicking toward exits, her weight stayed balanced on the balls of her feet, and the faint bulge beneath the lace at her thigh hinted at something no guest would dare imagine. This was not a woman who had ever learned to stand unguarded. Even on her wedding day, she calculated threats. Michael squeezed her hands, mistaking her stillness for jitters. His brown eyes carried warmth, the kind of love that convinced her she could finally lay her ghosts to rest. For 3 years, he'd known her only as Kate Thorne, a private security consultant, a woman starting fresh in a quiet town. He knew she'd served once in some capacity. He knew she preferred cash to cards and always sat facing the door in restaurants. But he never pressed further. Love doesn't interrogate. And for a heartbeat, she let herself believe she belonged to this moment. Surrounded by roses, by friends, by family, she let the tide of normalcy carry her. Then movement at the back of the chapel sliced through the illusion. A man in a black suit slipped inside, too formal, too rigid. His hand brushed an earpiece as his gaze cut through the congregation straight into hers. His walk was precise, purposeful. The kind of controlled urgency Kate had seen countless times in places where lives were measured by seconds. She did not breathe differently, her smile did not falter, but her mind snapped into another state entirely. The ceremony pressed on. Father Rivers' voice rose with the weight of tradition. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." But Kate was already cataloging. Male, mid-40s, gray at the temples, 6 feet even, a slight shoulder injury betrayed in his left arm, bulge of a holster under the jacket, a man who carried the authority of clearance, of briefings that never made the papers. She thought she'd buried this world. The congregation rose, rustling like wind in the rafters, as the priest continued. Kate's mother dabbed at tears. Michael's father adjusted his tie nervously. None of them noticed the silent signal flashing across the chapel aisle, the man in black holding 3 fingers against his palm. Immediate extraction required. Her pulse spiked, her breath stayed steady. 3 years she had lived as a civilian. 3 years she trained herself to believe in a future of lake houses and porch swings. But code signals didn't belong in weddings. Code signals belonged to the shadows she had sworn to leave behind. Her phone vibrated against her thigh, the one no one knew about, the one she wasn't supposed to have. One vibration only, priority alpha, immediate response, lives in imminent danger. The sound was faint, but it may as well have been a fire alarm. Every instinct reactivated. Her body shifted forward, weight ready. And still, to her guests, she was radiant. Father Rivers' voice echoed. "If any among you knows of a just cause why these two should not lawfully be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence that followed was not comfortable. It was electric, held breath, anticipation of something none of them understood. Then the man in black stepped forward, his voice cutting through the sacred air. "Ma'am, we need to talk now." Gasps, murmurs, faces turning toward her. Michael's hands tightened around hers, his body instinctively moving to shield her. "Excuse me, this is private, you need to leave." But the man in black never looked at him. His eyes stayed locked on Kate. His words cut deeper than the murmurs of scandal that swelled around them. "Admiral Stone sent me. We have a Scarlet Thunder situation. Victor Zaitz surfaced 6 hours ago. 3 agents are already down." Victor Zaitz. The name hit Kate like a blade of ice. The arms dealer who had haunted her nightmares. the ghost she had hunted across continents, the man whose weapons had carved bloody scars into American units, officially killed 2 years ago, supposedly erased in a drone strike. If he was alive, if he was here, then nothing she had built in Cedar Falls was real. Michael's voice broke into her silence. "Kate, what the hell is going on? Who is Admiral Stone? Who is Zaitz?" Her encrypted phone buzzed again. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short, Morse code, SOS. Someone was dying while she stood at the altar. She turned to Michael. His brown eyes searched her face for truth. For the first time in 3 years, she couldn't give it to him. "Michael," her voice faltered, "I'm not who you think I am." The chapel fell silent, 150 guests holding their breath as 3 years of lies began to crumble. The female agent appeared then, auburn hair glinting in the stained glass light, moving to the exit. Containment, control, extraction formation. Kate's mother rose from the front pew, her voice trembling. "Katerina Marie, you tell me right now what is happening. This is your wedding day." But Kate's wedding day was over. The agent's voice was sharp. "Zaitz hit a federal convoy. He has weapons-grade plutonium. He's moving toward population centers. Local law enforcement compromised. You're the only operative with first-hand knowledge of his tactics. Admiral Stone authorized immediate reactivation. Protocol 7. The words were a hammer. Emergency Protocol 7, a forced return to service. No choice, no negotiation. Michael stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. The woman he thought he'd marry gone. In her place, someone dangerous. Someone who spoke the language of violence fluently. "Kate," he whispered, devastation cracking his voice. "You're not coming back, are you?" She didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Kate looked at him one last time, memorizing the lines of his face. The man who'd built her bookshelves, who'd taught her laughter again. She felt the weight of the ring on her finger, its diamond burning like a star, a symbol of the life she was about to abandon. Her bouquet slipped from her hands. She reached beneath the silk and lace of her gown. Her fingers closed on cold steel. The Glock 19 she'd strapped to her thigh that morning out of habit, out of instinct. Gasps echoed as she drew it. Her movements were smooth, practiced. She checked the chamber, the sound sharp in the silence. Michael's voice broke the spell. "Who are you really?" Her pale eyes met his, depths he'd never known staring back at him. "Someone who stops bad people from hurting innocent ones. And right now, that's all that matters." The chapel seemed frozen in a painting. Her groom abandoned at the altar. Her mother trembling, proud even in shock. Her friends gaping in disbelief. Kate stepped back, her gown rustling against marble. The end of one life, the reluctant beginning of another. And when she turned toward the doors, she whispered only one thing across the space she was leaving behind. "I love you, Michael. Remember that, no matter what you hear about what happens next." Then she was gone. What does a wedding dress become when it's worn into war? The chapel doors slammed behind her, shutting out the voices, the whispers, the love she had walked away from. Outside, the sunlight was blinding, too harsh, too real. A black SUV waited at the curb, engine growling low like a caged beast. The agents flanked her, their movements sharp, efficient, no hesitation in pulling her from one life and shoving her back into another. Kate slid into the back seat. The vehicle peeled away from the church, tires screeching against asphalt as startled wedding guests spilled into the doorway behind them. She caught a last glimpse in the rearview mirror, Michael standing at the altar, frozen, his hands empty. She forced herself to turn away. Survival demanded compartments, walls inside the mind. One for the mission, one for the man she loved, one for the grief she could not afford right now. The female agent shoved a secure tablet into her hands. "Target's name is Viktor Alexandrovich Zaitz. You know him." Kate scrolled through the files, surveillance shots burned into her memory even before the screen displayed them. Zait's, silver now at the temples, lines deeper around his mouth, but those eyes, cold, precise, patient. She had hunted them across Europe. She had failed to finish him. "What's his connection to Cedar Falls?" she asked. Her voice was sharp, stripped of the softness Michael knew. "Convoy was hit less than 20 miles out," the driver answered. "Classified cargo. Someone leaked route intel. He has it." "What cargo?" "Plutonium." The word was a knife to the chest. She knew what it meant. Not explosives, not guns, apocalypse in a suitcase. Enough to poison cities, enough to stain generations. Kate's fingers moved over the tablet, enlarging the map, knotting the red pins where agents had already fallen. She felt the weight of every dot. "He's building something," the female agent continued. "We lost 4 operatives already. Stone authorized immediate reactivation. Protocol 7. Kate almost laughed. The sound never reached her lips. "That's what it takes, huh? 3 years gone, wedding vows, and suddenly I'm property again." No one answered. The SUV tore down mountain roads, the Wyoming wilderness stretching around them, rugged, beautiful, indifferent. Kate stared out at the peaks, remembering the quiet mornings she'd run those trails, the afternoons she'd thought maybe, just maybe, she could belong to normal life. Her phone buzzed, not the encrypted line, her personal phone. A message from Michael. "Whatever you're doing, be safe. I love you." Her throat closed. She stared at the words, her heart fighting against the steel walls she had built. Then she powered the phone down. Personal connections in the field were liabilities, anchors that dragged you into death. She had learned that once. Too young, too brutally. She shoved the device deep into her gown and focused forward. "ETA to base?" she asked. 12 minutes. They crested a ridge. Below them, an alpine meadow spread wide, filled with military vehicles, communications arrays, soldiers moving in coordinated rhythm. At its center, the dark silhouette of a Black Hawk helicopter spun its blades against the sky. Her chest tightened. And then she saw her. Admiral Rebecca Stone. Silver hair in a regulation bun, blue eyes sharp enough to cut steel. The woman who had once pulled Kate from the brink, who had signed the paper that let her retire before the shadows consumed her. The woman who had understood the cost of staying too long. Kate stepped out of the SUV. The wedding dress, now streaked with dust and torn lace, billowed around her combat boots as she strode forward. Soldiers stopped to stare. Some smirked. Some whispered. None dared laugh. There was something about the way she moved, fluid, precise, predatory, that made mockery impossible. She saluted. The gesture felt strange after 3 years. "Admiral." "Kate," Stone returned the salute, her expression unreadable. "Good to see you. A beat. Though I wish it were under different circumstances." Inside the command trailer, maps covered the walls. Satellite imagery flickered across screens. Red markers showed suspected positions. Black markers marked the dead. Kate's eyes cataloged every detail in seconds. "Tell me you're not sending me in blind," she said. Stone's jaw tightened. "I'm afraid that's exactly what we're asking. Zaitsev has been jamming surveillance for hours. We lost drones. We lost recon teams. He's here, somewhere in this 10-square-mile radius. He has the material. He's less than 6 hours from a functional dispersal device." Kate studied the imagery. So many gaps, so much silence where information should be. "And my support. 2 agents, overwatch only, you go in, eliminate target, recover plutonium." Kate's laugh was bitter. "That's suicide." Stone's voice was iron. "It's survival, not for you, for everyone else." The Admiral paused, lowering her voice. "One more thing. We intercepted comms an hour ago. He knows you're coming. He wants you. He's been waiting." Ice slid through Kate's veins. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a trap. Every move since the convoy hit had been orchestrated to draw her out. "He's baiting me," she whispered. Stone didn't disagree. "The question is why?" Kate checked her weapons, sliding new magazines into her vest, strapping combat knives over white silk. The absurdity of it didn't matter. Function mattered. Survival mattered. She had walked out of a chapel in a gown meant for vows. Now she was fastening grenades to its bodice. Satin and steel, love and war stitched into one impossible shape. The Blackhawk's rotors thundered outside, scattering dust across the meadow. Soldiers shouted. Equipment clattered. The air itself seemed to vibrate with urgency. Stone's voice cut through the chaos. Whatever it takes, Kate. Zaitsev doesn't leave that mountain alive, and neither does that plutonium. Kate turned toward the door. For a moment she closed her eyes, remembering Michael's face. His brown eyes when he realized she wasn't who he thought. His voice asking if she would ever come back. She had no answer then. She had none now. When she opened her eyes, the operative had returned. She strode toward the helicopter, the downdraft whipping her gown into a storm of silk and dust. Soldiers stepped aside, watching her climb aboard like they were seeing a myth take shape. As the Blackhawk lifted off, Stone's final words crackled in her headset. "He knows you, Kate, every move you've ever made, the convoy, the plutonium, even your wedding. This was all designed to bring you here. Question is, what does he want with you alive?" Kate looked out at the mountains rising like jagged teeth beneath the darkening sky. Somewhere in that wilderness, Victor Zaitsev waited, not running, not hiding, waiting. She tightened her grip on her rifle. "Then let's find out." The Blackhawk banked toward the storm. What kind of bride walks into the forest knowing she may never walk out? The Blackhawk shuddered against gathering storm clouds, its rotors beating the Wyoming sky into submission. Kate sat with her rifle cradled across her lap, her wedding dress shredded and tucked beneath tactical webbing, the lace soaked now with sweat and dust. Her jaw was tight, her eyes focused. In this strange, surreal fusion of satin and steel, she looked less like a bride and more like a ghost, something between life and death, halfway to belonging in neither world. Through the headset, Admiral Stone's voice broke through static. Thermal imaging shows a cluster of heat signatures at the Copper Creek mining facility, roughly 8 miles northeast of insertion point. Expect countermeasures. He's had 6 hours to prepare. Kate answered with 2 clicks of the mic. No words. Words would only get in the way. Beside her sat 2 federal agents, Martinez and Thompson, young, eager. Their nerves practically radiated in the cramped aircraft. They had been briefed on Ghost 7, the legendary operative who had once dismantled entire cells alone, who'd vanished into civilian life like smoke. They knew her reputation, but knowing and understanding were not the same. Martinez adjusted his grip on his weapon. "Ma'am, what's our role if we encounter civilians?" A good question, a human question. Kate's answer was quiet, steady. Protect them at all costs, but anyone still there after 6 hours of federal presence, assume compromised. Trust your training. Verify every target before pulling the trigger. The pilot's voice cut in. 2 minutes to insertion. Weather's degrading. Visibility dropping fast. This might be your only window. Kate looked down through the open bay door. The forest below was endless. Pines stretched over jagged slopes, dark green rivers of needles broken by ridges of sharp stone. To most people, it looked like wilderness. To her, it looked like a killing ground. The Blackhawk dropped into a rocky clearing, rotors flailing the treetops. The team fast-stroked down, boots hitting soil slick with pine needles and rain. The noise of the helicopter faded into distance, swallowed by trees. Silence pressed in, heavy, unnatural. Kate inhaled. The air was thin, sharp with pine resin. No birdsong, no insect hum. The kind of silence predators leave behind. "Com check," she whispered. 2 soft affirmatives in her ear. Both agents steady, at least for now. "Move." They advanced into the forest. Kate's movements were effortless, footsteps placed with deliberate precision, weight distributed to avoid betraying sound. Behind her, Martinez and Thompson did their best to mimic her, but Kate's ears picked up the small betrayals, the faint jingle of unsecured gear, the too controlled breathing. They were professionals, yes, but not ghosts. 2 miles in, she stopped dead. Her fist rose in silent signal. The forest shifted around them. Air pressure changed. The soundscape bent. She closed her eyes and listened. And there it was, leather scraping stone, a boot, 200 meters ahead uphill, a sentry. Her mind mapped it instantly. One man posted with radio. Standard perimeter doctrine, which meant more behind him, layered out like a net. Kate signed instructions. Thompson to overwatch, Martinez with her, silent approach. She moved low, body angled like water flowing over stone. Each step chosen like words in a language only she spoke. Martinez followed, trying, but she could hear the pine needles betray his weight. The sentry appeared exactly where she expected. Lean figure crouched behind a fallen log, rifle resting ready, headset snug against his ear. Young, professional, not hired muscle, trained. Kate considered her options. Capture might bring intelligence, but also risk exposure. Kill him and his radio silence would trigger suspicion, but not immediately. Her decision was already made. She moved with surgical precision. A blur. One breath later, the forest was silent again. The sentry slumped without a sound. Martinez froze, staring at her efficiency. Kate's hands were already searching the body, radio, ammo, a map. Nothing new, just another piece of the trap. "How many more?" Martinez whispered. Kate scanned the slope ahead through her optic. At least 3 more layers, maybe 6. Zaitev's building a lattice around the facility. They advanced. The forest darkened as storm clouds gathered overhead. Winds shifted. Rain pattered. Every minute the silence grew heavier. By the time the sun dipped toward the horizon, they were deep within enemy territory. The Copper Creek facility rose from the mist ahead, a decaying skeleton of steel and concrete scattered across a barren plateau. Floodlights pierced the fog. Figures moved in disciplined patrols. Through her thermoscope, Kate counted at least 15. "Jesus," Thompson muttered from behind optics. "It's a fortress." Kate silenced him with a gesture. Her eyes traced the patterns, floodlights, fields of fire, elevated positions. Zaitsev had chosen well. Every angle of approach funneled attackers into kill zones. Every light created shadows designed for ambush. Then she saw him. A new heat signature moving differently from the others. Slower, deliberate, inspecting, ordering. Victor Zaitsev himself. Even distorted through the scope, she recognized his gait, the tilt of his head, that cold economy of movement she'd studied for years. "Target confirmed," she whispered. Martinez exhaled sharply. "So he's here." "No," Kate's eyes never left the scope. "He's waiting." The words were heavier than thunder. Her tactical tablet displayed old mining surveys, interconnected tunnels beneath the facility, abandoned decades ago, dangerous, unstable, but an option. She traced the routes, her finger pressing against damp glass. "We go in below." Thompson frowned. "How do we know they're passable?" "We don't," she said, "but a frontal assault is suicide." She watched Zaitsev pace the catwalks, watched mercenaries snap to attention at his passing. He wasn't preparing to run. He was staging for a siege. Movement caught her eye. A patrol sweeping north, 2 men, professional, methodical, hunting. If they continued, they would stumble across the team's position. Kate made her choice. Hand signals, flanking maneuver, silent elimination. The ground was treacherous, slick with wet needles and loose stone, but Kate read it like scripture. The patrol walked into the choke point exactly as she predicted. 2 figures, rifles ready, eyes scanning. She struck. The engagement was swift, brutal, silent. Less than 30 seconds. 2 more bodies lost to the forest. Martinez swallowed hard, his breath fogging in the cold air. How many more like them? Kate didn't answer. She looked at her watch. Sunset in 90 minutes. Once the light was gone, the mountain would belong to Zaitz. "Stay close," she whispered. "Every second counts." They pushed onward, climbing higher. The rain thickened. The mist curled like smoke. Ahead, jagged rocks rose like teeth, framing the black maw of an entrance hidden beneath decades of overgrowth. The tunnel mouth. Kate crouched, tracing the shape with her optic. Damp stone, recent disturbance, boot prints in mud. "Entrance," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. Martinez peered past her shoulder. "God, it looks like a tomb." Kate adjusted her grip on her rifle, her pale eyes unblinking as the storm deepened overhead. It might be. The mountain waited, dark, silent, hungry. She stepped forward. What does silence sound like, when even the mountain holds its breath? The entrance was little more than a wound in the rock, jagged, narrow, half concealed by decades of pine needles and rain-slick boulders. Kate pressed her gloved hand against the stone, feeling its cold seep into her bones. A place abandoned by miners generations ago, now repurposed by men who dealt in death. She slipped inside first. The lace of her ruined gown caught on jagged stone, tearing again, but she hardly noticed. The tunnel swallowed her whole, the air thick and stale. Her weapon-mounted light carved a pale beam through the dark, illuminating walls that dripped with moisture, floors littered with rusted scraps of machinery. "Stay close," she whispered. Martinez followed, his breathing sharp in the enclosed space. Behind him, Thompson held at the entrance, assigned overwatch. They needed someone up top, someone alive to call in an extraction if they never came back. Inside, the darkness pressed in tighter with every step. The deeper they moved, the heavier the air became, laced with the metallic tang of old iron and something sharper, electrical hum. Kate froze, tilted her head, listened. Yes, faint vibrations, not natural, machines, recently placed. She leaned close to Martinez, lips nearly touching his ear so sound wouldn't carry. "Sensors, communications, he's been here." Martinez's eyes widened. Sweat beaded on his temple despite the chill. They moved on. Every footstep had to be deliberate. The floor was uneven, scattered with loose stones that threatened to betray them with noise. Kate's body moved like liquid, each placement precise, muscle memory guiding her. Martinez tried. His movements carried the stiffness of someone too aware of his own vulnerability. Evidence of recent passage was everywhere. Disturbed cobwebs, fresh scuffs on the rock, faint bootprints in the dust. Zaitz's people had mapped this place, prepared it. The tunnel branched, old mining shafts yawning like the ribs of some dead animal. Kate studied the faded markings, cross-referencing with the digital survey on her tablet. Dead ends, collapsed sections, traps waiting to be sprung. "This way," she whispered, guiding them deeper along a descending shaft. After 20 minutes, the walls narrowed until the tunnel forced them into single file. The weight of the mountain pressed down, oppressive. The silence was so thick Kate could hear Martinez's heartbeat in the dark. Then a glow ahead, artificial light. Kate crouched low, signaling halt. She crept forward, every nerve awake, peered around the bend. A guard. One man stationed at the junction, radio headset glowing faintly in the dim. Rifle across his lap, posture relaxed but alert. Positioned perfectly to monitor multiple approaches. A choke point. Kate's lips tightened. They would need to pass here. Noise or error meant the entire facility alerted. She crept forward. The tunnel's damp stone threatened to betray her footing, but she tested every step like a surgeon with a scalpel. One mistake meant death. Her hand closed over his mouth. Her blade slid quick and clean. 10 seconds later, the guard slumped silently, radio still whispering static. Martinez caught up, his eyes wide as she rifled the body. Standard gear. But something else, a laminated map tucked into his vest. Kate spread it under the beam of her light. Red XS for security posts. Blue lines for patrol routes. green squares for supply caches, but what made her blood run cold were the symbols she recognized instantly: charges, remotely triggered explosives positioned at choke points throughout the tunnel system. Zaitsev hadn't just fortified the facility above. He'd turned the underground into a coffin. "He's mapped this whole thing," Martinez breathed. "We're walking into his kill zone." Kate nodded grimly. She folded the map, slid it into her vest. "Then we make his kill zone ours." They moved on. The tunnel twisted, dipped deeper. The hum of machinery grew louder, the air hotter. More footprints, heavier traffic. She could feel it, they were closing in on the heart. Time blurred underground. Every minute stretched like hours. Martinez stumbled once, his boots scuffing stone. Kate's hand shot out, steadying him before he collapsed. His eyes met hers, gratitude and fear mixing in the glow of her light. "You all right?" she whispered. He nodded, swallowing hard. But she saw it, the doubt, the weight of realizing he was not ready for the world she walked in so easily. They reached another junction. Voices carried faintly. Russian, two men talking casually, unaware, guards. Kate signaled silence, moved forward. The engagement was swift. Two bodies dropped without a sound. Martinez's hands shook afterward, the blood on his knife trembling with him. Kate touched his shoulder, a rare gesture. "Don't think about it, just move." They pushed forward again, deeper still, until the tunnel opened wide into a vast chamber. Kate's breath caught. Floodlights hung from steel scaffolding. Workbenches lined with equipment hummed with power. Monitors flickered with streams of code. And in the center, gleaming under harsh white light, stood a metallic cylinder the size of a man. The device. Her pulse hammered. This was no crude bomb, no makeshift threat. It was clean, engineered, terrifyingly professional. Whoever had built it knew what they were doing. The kind of knowledge that turned stolen plutonium into apocalypse. "Jesus Christ," Martinez whispered, his voice cracking. "That could contaminate half the state." Kate's hand shot up, silence. Her optics swept the chamber. Catwalks lined the walls, shadowed figures stationed with rifles trained on the entrances. At least 8 heat signatures. And then she saw him. Viktor Zaitsev. Silver hair glinting in the floodlights. Tactical vest fitted with precision. He stood beside the device, one hand resting on it like a priest at an altar. His pale blue eyes gleamed with satisfaction. And when he spoke, his voice carried effortlessly through the chamber. "Katerina Thorne, or should I say Mrs. Brennan, though it seems the ceremony was interrupted." The words sliced through her chest. He knew everything. Martinez stiffened beside her. Kate remained still, her weapon raised but steady. Her voice was even. "Victor, Budapest feels like a lifetime ago." He smiled, cold, cruel. "Indeed, you were close that night. A few more minutes and so much unpleasantness might have been avoided. American soldiers in Afghanistan, civilians in Berlin, all deaths you failed to stop." His words were knives, aimed at scars she already carried. She refused to flinch. "You have something that doesn't belong to you. Hand it over or this ends here." Zaitsev laughed. The sound echoed, filling the chamber like thunder. "My dear Katerina, you misunderstand. This," he gestured to the device, "is not for war. It is a demonstration, a live performance for buyers watching even now through encrypted feeds. Terrorists, governments, cartels, all eager to see if their investment can withstand America's finest." Kate's stomach dropped, her mind raced. A demonstration, not just a bomb, a performance. "And you," he continued, "are the star, Ghost 7, the one who will prove my creation's worth by trying and failing to stop it." Her breath froze. Cameras, hidden uplinks, every movement of hers was being watched, recorded, analyzed. Success or failure, she was already part of his marketing. Victor's smile widened. "Your government didn't send you here, I did. This is my stage, Katerina, my trap, my revenge." Kate's heart pounded in her ears. The chamber seemed to tighten around her. Martinez looked at her, waiting. What could she do when every path forward was designed for her destruction? What happens when the trap is designed not just to kill you, but to humiliate you? The chamber reeked of oil, sweat, and cold metal. Kate's rifle tracked across the catwalks, her finger resting near the trigger. Dozens of shadowed muzzles stared back, patient, waiting. Above, tiny red glows winked in the darkness, cameras, watching, streaming. Proof that Victor Zaitz was not simply arming buyers. He was selling a spectacle. Zaitz stood calmly beside the device, hands folded with the composure of a maestro before an orchestra. His voice echoed from wall to wall. You came here thinking you were hunting me. No, Katerina, you are the performance. Every angle recorded, every heartbeat measured. They're watching now, leaders, warlords, men who measure power in rivers of blood. They want to see if the ghost lives up to the stories. Kate's jaw tightened. Inside, shame threatened to flare, rage too, but she ground it down. Anger fed your enemy, precision defeated him. She raised her weapon slightly, her voice cold. You want a performance, be careful what you wish for. Zaitz's smile was all knives. Good, show them. The floodlights cut out. Darkness swallowed the chamber, pierced only by stuttering flashes of red emergency bulbs. Shouts in Russian echoed. Boots thundered. The hunt had begun. Kate dropped instantly, her shoulders slamming into damp stone. Muzzle fire erupted from the catwalks. Sparks rained. The tunnel walls amplified every sound, turning each gunshot into a deafening crack of thunder. Contact, Martinez hissed, firing blind. Stop, Kate barked. Count your shots, aim for light. Her own rifle spoke short, deliberate bursts. She didn't shoot at shadows. She aimed for the glow of muzzle flashes, the faint silhouettes shifting against red haze. One shot, two. A scream. A body tumbled from the catwalk, hitting stone with a sickening thud. But they were outnumbered. 10, maybe 12 shooters, all elevated, all waiting for her to break formation. Martinez's voice shook. We're boxed in. Kate's mind raced. Options closed like jaws. They couldn't outshoot them, not pinned here. They needed disruption. Chaos. Her hand found a flashbang at her vest. She yanked the pin, whispered, "Close your eyes." The explosion tore the chamber white. Even through her closed lids, Kate saw fire burn the dark away. Screams followed, confusion, blindness, the perfect moment. She moved, fast, ghost fast. Up the scaffolding ladder, boots silent despite the metal. A man blinked against the blinding afterimage, his rifle swinging uselessly. Kate's blade silenced him before he could shout. She took his rifle, slung it, and crawled across the catwalk. Below, Martinez fired, controlled but desperate. His rounds clipped another guard. The young agent was holding, but fear bled through his voice. Kate's earpiece crackled, Thompson above ground. Status. She whispered between breaths. Engaged, multiple hostiles, Zaitz present, do not compromise Overwatch position. Static, then Thompson, copy, be careful. Be careful. The words pierced her chest, too tender for a place like this. Words Michael might have said if he'd seen her leave. Her focus snapped back, the red glow shifted. New figures moved, more armed men entering from side tunnels, reinforcements. Damn it, she muttered. Zaitz's laughter carried through the chamber, amplified by unseen speakers. Magnificent. Do you feel them watching you, Katerina? Every bullet, every breath. You are entertainment now, a product. Kate felt her teeth grind. This wasn't combat. This was theater, choreographed humiliation. He had chosen her dress, her vows, her very identity as his punchline. She was the ruined bride, paraded for an audience of killers. And yet something in her chest steeled. If he wanted theater, she would give him tragedy. His. She swung across the catwalk, dropped behind a gunner, and drove her blade clean through the man's side. His scream drew fire from two others, giving Martinez time to eliminate one. Kate seized the fallen weapon, hurled it across the chamber as a distraction, then dove behind a crate. Rounds tore splinters into her cover. One grazed her shoulder. Pain seared, hot and sharp. She clenched her teeth. Zait's voice slid into the wound like poison. "Every scar you take here is mine, Katerina. They will remember you not as the ghost, but as the bride who bled for nothing." Her chest heaved. Sweat soaked her ruined gown, but her voice came steady, low, unshaken. "Keep talking, Victor. Every word gives me more time to kill you." Silence followed, the kind of silence that told her he was smiling. Then an alarm shrieked, not hers, his. A countdown appeared on a monitor high on the scaffolding, numbers glowing red. 0500. Martinez's breath caught. "Is that?" Kate's eyes locked on the device. The cylinder hummed, its inner lights pulsing faster. "It's armed," she said. Her voice was ice. The firefight froze in her mind. Zaitsev had never intended to protect the weapon. He wanted it witnessed, activated, timed. Her earpiece crackled. Stone's voice cut through. "Kate, we see the signal. Is it armed?" "Yes." "How long?" "5 minutes." Stone's breath caught across miles of static. "Then you have no choice. You stop it or you bury it." The choice was no choice at all. Kate's pale eyes locked on the device, her mind already moving through possibilities. Disarmament, possible but not in 5 minutes under fire. Extraction, impossible. That left only one path: containment, collapse the chamber. "Martinez," she shouted over gunfire. "Charges, we need to bring this whole place down." Martinez's hands fumbled at his vest, pulling demolition packs. His face was pale, terror-stricken, but he obeyed. Rounds sparked inches from their heads. The walls groaned under impact. Zait's voice slithered again, rising with the alarm. "Yes, Katerina, collapse it. Bury yourself with me. A fitting ending for the ghost who tried to be a bride." She ignored him, focused, moving between cover, planting charges along load-bearing beams, each placement a prayer. 03:15. Sweat blurred her vision. Blood seeped from her shoulder. Her lungs burned with dust and cordite. Martinez shouted warnings, firing to suppress, his rounds echoing futilely against overwhelming numbers. Kate slid the final charge into place. 02:10. Her hand slammed the detonator. A small green light blinked, waiting. She met Martinez's terrified eyes. "On my mark, we run, understand?" He nodded, though his lips trembled. And then silence again. Too sudden, too deliberate. Kate's instinct screamed. From the shadows beyond the device, new figures stepped forward, heavily armed, tactical armor, faces covered, a private army untouched until now. They spread out in formation, rifles raised. At their center, Victor Zaitsev, untouched, unhurried. He stepped closer to the device, brushing his hand across its glowing surface. The countdown ticked past 0100. His eyes met Kate, across the chamber. "You won't bury me, Katerina. You'll watch, you'll fail. And when the world sees it, they'll know your ghosts die too." The chamber shook with the weight of inevitability. Kate's thumb hovered over the detonator. One press and she'd bring the mountain down, end it all, herself included. One hesitation, and the device would ignite. 50 seconds. Her heart pounded. Her life split between the altar she'd abandoned and the abyss she stood in now. And she knew, whatever choice she made, she would not come out the same. What choice do you make when every second is a death sentence? The countdown screamed in red across the monitors. 00:50, 00:49, 00:48. Each number burned itself into Kate's skull, pulsing with the rhythm of her heart. The chamber felt tighter with every tick, the air hotter, the shadows deeper. Victor Zaitsev stood calm beside the device, his hands folded as if at a pulpit, his blue eyes unblinking. Soldiers flanked him in precise formation, rifles trained on Kate and Martinez. He had prepared this moment down to the heartbeat. "You see now," Zait's voice carried, amplified through hidden speakers. "You were never hunter, only prey. My gift to the world is not the weapon, it is your failure." Kate's thumb hovered over the detonator. Her mind raced. One press would collapse the chamber, bury the device, bury Zait's, bury her too. Martinez would die. Michael would never know if she'd fought to return. Her mother would hear only that her daughter had vanished into rock. But hesitation was death too. The device ticked on, alive with a malevolent hum that vibrated through the floor. 0042. Martinez's voice cracked. "Do it, blow it, Kate." Her pale eyes cut to him. He was young, too young. Sweat dripped down his temple, his rifle shaking under the weight of inevitability. He wanted her to choose for him, to decide his life's end. She couldn't, not yet. "No," she hissed, "not while there's another way." She dropped the detonator into her vest and moved, fast and precise. Her rifle barked, 3 controlled bursts, cutting down the nearest guards before they registered. Martinez's fire joined hers, wild but enough. The chamber erupted. Gunfire roared like thunder. Sparks rained from catwalks. Floodlights flickered, casting strobing shadows. Kate dove behind a steel crate, bullets chewing stone around her. Her lungs burned with dust and cordite. Her shoulders screamed where blood still seeped. But her eyes stayed sharp, her movements disciplined. 0029. Her gaze locked on the device. Wires coiled from its core to a console near Zait's. Not a simple timer, a linked system. Manual override possible, but only from there. Of course, he had designed it this way. The only chance to stop it was to get close. Kate's breath steadied. This was no longer about burying the mountain. This was about reaching him. "Cover me," she barked. Martinez's eyes widened. "You can't." "Cover me." He obeyed. His rounds cracked the air, forcing Zait's soldiers to duck, buying seconds. Seconds were all Kate ever needed. She sprinted, white lace shredded against jagged stone, boots hammered against metal walkways. Every stride was defiance. Bullets sliced the air, ripping fabric, sparking against steel. She kept moving. 0019. A soldier stepped into her path. She didn't slow. Her blade flashed, swift and merciless, dropping him as she barreled past. 0015. She dove behind a console, breath ragged. Her fingers flew across the controls. Russian text scrolled, fail safes, dead man switches. She understood enough. Disarm sequence buried beneath layers of code. Zait's had planned every line. Then his voice, closer now. "You think you can stop it. You don't know the code, you never will, only I can, that is the point." She rose from cover. He was there, just meters away, calm, confident, weapon lowered at his side as if he didn't need it. His smile was cruel, almost paternal. "You came here in silk and lace," he said softly, eyes drinking in her torn gown, her bloodied hands. "Thinking you could be both bride and soldier. No, Katerina, you were always mine, made for this stage, for this ending." Her grip tightened on her rifle. Her chest heaved, fury and grief warring inside. "I was never yours." 0009. She lunged. They collided beside the device. His strength was surprising, brutal, disciplined. He caught her rifle, slammed it aside. Her knife flashed, but his arm blocked, twisting, forcing her against the console. The hum of the weapon filled her skull, vibrating through her bones. 0006. Her blade nicked his cheek. Blood welled. His smile only widened. "Yes," he hissed. "This is the real vow, not love, not peace, only this." Her eyes burned. Michael's face flashed in her mind, the way he'd looked at her when she walked away. She felt the ring still on her finger, pressed into her glove. Love was real, peace was real, and she would not let Victor Zait's write her story. 0003. Her hand slammed into the console, fingers flying. A half-remembered code from Budapest, an old pattern he'd once used. She prayed he hadn't changed. 0002. Zait's fist crashed into her ribs. Pain exploded white-hot. She gasped, but her hand struck the final key. 0001. The hum cut. The lights on the device flickered, then went dark. Silence. For half a heartbeat, there was no sound but her ragged breath, his low chuckle. Then his hand closed around her throat. He slammed her against the steel, his face inches from hers, his blood mixing with sweat. "Clever girl," he whispered. "But you think this ends here. That was only one device. There are more, always more. And you will chase me again and again until the day you finally break." Her vision blurred, edges darkening, but her hand still gripped the knife. With the last of her strength, she drove it upward, cutting deep across his forearm. He roared, stumbling back, releasing her. Kate collapsed, gasping, vision swimming. Martinez's voice shouted across the chamber, "Kate." She forced herself up, lungs burning, ribs screaming. Zaitz was already retreating, disappearing into a shadowed tunnel, his laughter echoing behind him. The device lay dark and silent, but his words lingered like poison. More devices, always more. Kate's knees trembled beneath her. Her hands shook as she steadied her rifle. She could feel the weight of the ring still pressing into her glove, reminding her of the life she'd already lost, the vow she'd abandoned. And she knew this was not over. Not by a long shot. What if every step forward only revealed how far the nightmare truly stretched? The chamber still reeked of gunpowder and blood, the silence unnaturally heavy after the chaos. Kate's body shook with exhaustion, her ribs screaming where Zaitz's blows had landed, but she forced herself to stand. Sweat ran down her neck, mingling with the grit of stone dust. The device behind her sat dark and inert, but its cold shell radiated menace. It wasn't victory, just delay. Martinez stumbled toward her, face pale in the glow of dying floodlights. "You stopped it," he whispered, half in awe, half in disbelief. Kate's jaw clenched. "Stop this one," he said. "There are more." Her voice echoed in the cavern, harsh, final. The words pressed down on Martinez like the weight of the mountain itself. In her earpiece, Admiral Stone's voice cut through static. "Kate, status." She pressed her comms, her tone flat. "Device neutralized. Zaitz escaped into secondary tunnels. He claims there are multiple units." Silence on the line, then Stone's steady voice. "Understood, pursue, confirm." Kate knew what confirm meant, not just intel, proof, evidence, even if it meant walking deeper into hell. She reloaded, the metallic snap sharp in the cavern's stillness. Martinez flinched at the sound. His hands were trembling, his knuckles white around his rifle. "You don't have to follow me," she said quietly, eyes steady on him. His response was immediate, too quick. "I do." She studied him. The way his fear clung to him like a second skin, the way his eyes betrayed the boy still inside the soldier's uniform. She saw herself in him, the first missions, the doubt, the endless question of whether you belonged in this world. She nodded once, then turned toward the tunnel where Zaitz's laughter had vanished. The air inside was heavier, carrying the sour stench of oil and ozone. Faint light flickered ahead, bouncing across the wet stone walls. The tunnels had shifted from abandoned mining shafts into something far more deliberate, reinforced beams, fresh wiring, tracks gouged into the dirt from heavy machinery. Zaitz hadn't stumbled upon Copper Creek. He'd been building here for months, maybe longer. They moved deeper, the path twisting, narrowing. Every shadow seemed alive. Martinez's breath grew sharper, too loud. Kate raised a finger, silence. Voices ahead, Russian, orders, not chatter. She motioned Martinez to flank. She slid low, every movement flowing, weapon raised. Around the bend, the tunnel opened into another chamber, smaller but filled with activity. Crates stacked high, marked with biohazard symbols. cables running into a generator thrumming with power, and in the center, another cylinder, smaller than the first but unmistakable. Kate's chest tightened. Two guards patrolled. Kate's blade flickered once, twice. Silence reclaimed the chamber. Martinez's hands shook as he helped drag the bodies aside. He looked at her, voice barely audible. "Another one, my God." She scanned the markings on the crates. Not just plutonium, chemical agents, hybridized payloads. This wasn't one bomb, it was an arsenal. Her stomach turned cold. Martinez swallowed hard. How many more? Kate's voice was quiet, enough to make sure the world never forgets his name. She crouched near the device, eyes narrowing at the wiring. It was primed, not active but ready, a unit in storage waiting its turn. Her earpiece crackled again. Thompson, the overwatch above ground. Movement outside, multiple vehicles, convoy heading east. Zaitz wasn't hiding. He was moving, deploying. Kate's pulse surged. They had minutes, maybe less, before these weapons spread like poison veins across the country. Thompson marked the convoy. "Do not engage. Stay hidden," she ordered. Static crackled back. "Copy, tracking." She turned to Martinez. "We plant charges here, then we move." They worked quickly. Demolition packs against the generator, the support beams, the device itself. Kate's movements were steady, efficient. Martinez's hands shook so violently he dropped one of the packs, the thud echoing too loud. Kate caught his wrist. "Breathe." His eyes darted, panic threatening to consume him. "We're in over our heads. We'll never make it out." She held his gaze, her own voice steady, low. "Neither did I once, but someone gave me a chance. Now I'm giving it to you. Don't waste it." For a moment something steadied in his eyes. He nodded, jaw clenched, and resumed. They finished. Kate armed the detonator, set for remote. "When we're clear," she whispered. They pushed deeper, following the tracks. The tunnel widened again, revealing something that froze them both. Rows. Rows of devices, cylinders gleaming under floodlights. Not one, not two, dozens. A factory of annihilation carved beneath the mountain. Martinez's breath caught, breaking into a gasp. "Dear God." Kate's throat went dry. She forced herself to count, 12 in view, possibly more beyond, enough to poison continents, enough to shatter entire regions. And standing on the catwalk above, overlooking his empire, was Victor Zaitz. His voice rolled across the cavern, steady, mocking. "Welcome, Katerina. Now you see my legacy." Dozens of rifles swung toward them. Kate's hand closed on the detonator, her eyes locked on Zaitz. "You're not leaving this mountain alive," she said. His smile widened. "Neither are you." The floodlights blazed brighter. The soldiers closed in. Kate's thumb pressed down. The explosion tore the smaller chamber behind them into fire. The mountain shook, dust cascading from the ceiling. Flames licked the tunnel, illuminating Zaitz's face above, a portrait of fury and triumph entwined. Kate grabbed Martinez's vest, dragging him backward as stone and steel collapsed. The roar consumed everything. Then darkness. Silence. She coughed, lungs filling with dust. Her ears rang. Martinez groaned beside her, blood streaking his face. The tunnel behind them was gone, sealed by fire and rubble. But ahead the factory still pulsed with light, still alive, still waiting. And Zaitz's laughter echoed above, deeper now, as if the mountain itself laughed with him. Kate's chest tightened. They were trapped, outnumbered, the scale of his plan larger than anything she had imagined. And for the first time since stepping out of the chapel, a flicker of doubt pierced her resolve. What if this was a war she couldn't win? What is the measure of a vow? The words spoken before an altar, or the silence kept on a battlefield? The mountain groaned around them, dust raining from the rafters. Kate pushed herself upright, lungs burning, ribs aching from the collapse. Martinez staggered beside her, blood seeping from a cut on his brow. The factory stretched before them in impossible scale. Rows of gleaming cylinders, generators humming, catwalks webbed above with soldiers training rifles down. And at the center, like a conductor before an orchestra, stood Victor Zaitsev. His voice rolled across the cavern, steady, triumphant. Do you see now, Katerina? Even your destruction feeds my creation. Every angle recorded, every heartbeat streamed. Your government will see this. The world will see. The ghost failed. Kate's grip tightened on her rifle. Dust caked her sweat-soaked hair, blood streaked her torn gown, yet her pale eyes burned steady. She scanned the catwalks, counted weapons, measured distances. Outnumbered, outgunned, but never outwilled. Martinez's whisper shook. We can't fight this. Kate's voice was steel. We don't fight all of it, we fight what we must. Above, Zaitsev raised a hand. His soldiers tightened their aim. Lower your weapons. Surrender, Katerina. Show them the truth. The mighty ghost, kneeling in lace, broken before the altar of war. For a moment she considered it, the weight of rifles above, the futility pressing down like the mountain itself. Her heart pounded, caught between vows. One to Michael, whispered before God and family. One to the faceless innocents who would die if she failed here. Which vow mattered more? She let her rifle clatter to the stone. Martinez gasped, Kate. Her hands rose, slow, calm. Zaitsev's smile spread, victory etched into every line of his face. Cameras above word, drinking in the image of surrender, the story he wanted. But Kate had always been more than a soldier, more than a ghost. She was a survivor. Her thumb pressed the hidden trigger, clipped beneath her glove. The detonator wired to the charges they'd planted earlier. The mountain shook. A bloom of fire roared from the far tunnels, the blast wave hurling dust and flame across the cavern. Soldiers staggered, rifles wavering. Catwalks rattled, some collapsing entirely. Chaos erupted. Kate dove, seizing her rifle from the ground, firing upward with ruthless precision. Martinez followed, rounds sparking across steel. Men screamed, tumbled from catwalks. The cavern became thunder. Zaitsev roared, fury shredding his calm veneer. He barked orders in Russian, rallying his men. But his eyes locked on Kate, not as prey now, as rival. She moved through the chaos like water, every step fluid, every shot deliberate. Martinez covered her flank, firing wild but enough to keep pressure. Explosions rippled through the factory as secondary charges detonated, one she hadn't even told him she'd placed. Still, the arsenal stood, dozens of devices intact, too many to destroy with gunfire. Zaitsev knew it. He leapt from the catwalk, boots striking the stone with a predator's grace. His rifle was discarded. He wanted this close. Kate turned as he charged. Their bodies collided, blades flashing, the fight raw and brutal. His strength was monstrous, honed by decades of violence. He drove her back, knife slicing her arm. Pain flared, but she countered, slashing across his vest. Martinez shouted, tried to aim, but Zaitsev twisted Kate into his line of fire. One wrong shot and he'd kill her. Stand down, Kate roared, her voice cracking. This is mine. The words tore from her chest not as bravado but as truth. This was always hers, the chase, the ghosts, the unfinished hunt. Zaitsev's fist crashed into her ribs. Breath fled her lungs. His blade arced for her throat. But she was faster. Her ringed hand, Michael's ring still pressed to her skin, drove upward, diamond biting into his eye with brutal force. He screamed, staggering, blood pouring. Kate didn't hesitate. Her knife pierced deep beneath his ribs, angled up, twisting. Zaitsev's eyes widened, fury giving way to shock. His breath hitched, then choked. He collapsed to his knees, staring at her with one ruined eye. You were always mine, he rasped. Kate's voice shook, low but certain. I was never yours. She drove the blade deeper. His body convulsed, then stilled. Silence followed, heavy, final. Martinez's breath came ragged. Is it over? Kate's chest heaved. She looked at the rows of devices humming still, their menace untouched. She shook her head slowly. Not yet. Together they climbed the catwalk, fought through stragglers, planting the last of their charges along the support beams and generators. Each placement was a sentence, a vow carved into stone. Admiral Stone's voice crackled in her ear, urgent. "Kate, status. Do you copy?" Kate pressed her comms, voice hoarse. "Target neutralized, arsenal compromised, setting final charges." Stone's voice faltered. "Extraction team is inbound. But Kate, if you bring that mountain down, you won't make it out in time." Her eyes swept the cavern, rows of death waiting to be born, cameras still blinking red. She thought of Michael, standing in the chapel, his hands empty. She thought of the life she'd left behind, the vows broken before they were spoken. Some vows weren't meant to be kept. Some were meant to be sacrificed for others. She met Martinez's eyes. He was young, terrified, clinging to her like a lifeline. He deserved the chance she'd once been given. "You're leaving," she said quietly. "Now." His voice cracked. "No." She pressed the detonator into his palm. "When you reach daylight, you press this. Don't stop. Don't look back, just live." Tears welled in his eyes. "Kate." Her hand gripped his shoulder, steady, unshakable. "That's an order." For a heartbeat he hesitated. Then he nodded, jaw trembling, and turned toward the escape shaft. His footsteps faded, swallowed by distance. Kate stood alone in the cavern, the arsenal humming around her, the mountain trembling as if it already knew what was coming. She looked down at her torn gown, at the blood soaking its silk, at the ring glinting faintly through dust and sweat. She whispered so softly no one but the stone could hear. "I love you, Michael. Remember that, no matter what you hear." Then she set her final charge. The mountain roared. Fire bloomed. Steel screamed as it twisted, shattered, fell. The arsenal disappeared into a storm of stone and flame. Above, Martinez stumbled into the night, pressing the detonator as the ground shook. The mountain behind him collapsed in on itself, a volcano of dust and fire blotting out the stars. For hours the earth burned. For days rescue teams combed the ruins. They found nothing. No body, no trace, only silence. And yet rumors grew. Of a woman seen on the edges of battlefields. Of a ghost who bled in silk and lace, who fought without rank or name. A bride who never returned from her vows but whose sacrifice saved thousands. Admiral Stone filed the report with shaking hands. Status: missing. Presumed KIA. But in the private margins where no one else would see, she wrote just 2 words. Still watching. Because ghosts never die. And somewhere in the silence, where vows and sacrifice meet, Kate Thorne walked on, unseen, unclaimed, undefeated. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.